We're less than 1 month away from the first global assembly on the Synod on Synodality, the culmination of a multi-year global effort of listening to the universal church. The massive process that began in 2021 has already undergone the diocesan, national, and continental stages. Hundreds of clergy, including bishops, priests, religious, as well as laity from around the world, will be participating in the Synod on Synodality, or the 16th Ordinary General Assembly of the Synod of Bishops. Among those lay and religious are women. Some 83 women will be taking part in the Synod, 38 religious and 45 lay women. 54 women in all will be voting in the Synod. They will be comprised of 24 religious and 30 lay women. The role of women in the church is expected to be touched upon in the Synod on Synodality, but some critics are raising concerns about the upcoming assembly, asking whether it might lead to potential changes in church teaching on the role of women. I spoke with the Europe correspondent for our National Catholic Register, Solene Tadie, who has been following this issue closely on what we can expect this October. Solene, you profiled the recent new female leaders, one of them, Mother Yvonne Rougonat. What is her vision for female leadership at the Vatican and its purpose?
Yes, Mother Rougonat in some ways is a symbol of Pope Francis's efforts during his pontificate to appoint more women to decision-making positions in continuity with his predecessor, Pope Benedict XVI. In terms of her vision of female leadership, she already reaffirmed in our 2019 interview for the National Catholic Register the importance of having different and distinct ministries in the church. And she emphasized also that women complement the hierarchy of the church in handling ecclesiastical affairs, not least because with their specific sensitivity, they see things in a unique way, and they have distinct perceptions on humanity's inherent frailty, which helps a lot actually in tackling the most delicate issues. She therefore encourages a strong recommitment of women in the life of the church, without being shy, without being, with a very strong commitment, but without ever losing sight of this necessary complementary approach. And she has held the same position in all her public statements since then.
That approach, many women do want to discuss leadership at the Vatican, but they think that it needs to be done through the diaconate or opening up the ordination or the priesthood for women. What has your reporting shown about these recent appointments, and whether it signals that any of that is true, or is it really Mother's vision that's true?
Indeed, there have been these demands in the background of the Synod reflection so far. Several theologians, organizations like Women's Ordination Conference are actively promoting these views. Yet these demands, I can say also that these demands were heard during the continental assemblies for the Synod last winter that I attended for the National Catholic Register in Prague. It was in February, and they were mainly put forward by Synod delegates from Germany, many of them who are also part of the German Synodal way. But this, I can say that it remains a relatively minority position in relation to the overall discussions and proposals. The Pope himself has already rejected these demands, and the women selected to take part in the Synod assembly, in the Synodal assembly in October, show no particular signs of changing course in this direction, at least for the time being. And Cardinal Hollerich, the general rapporteur of the Synod, during a press briefing in February, still in Prague, wanted to make it clear that it was not a Synod on priesthood of women whatsoever, and that this would not be on the agenda for discussions.
Now, Solene, tell us a little bit about the recent history of this issue. What has Pope Francis done to listen to women? Is he able to change the diaconate?
In his various decisions, Pope Francis has shown his willingness to listen to women by giving them an increasing place at all levels of the church administrations. That's very clear. And it is also attested by a recent study published by Vatican News showing that in 2022, some 26% of the Vatican staff were all women. many of whom are also lay women, including economists, historians, archivists, secretaries, and they were only 19% in 2013. But regarding the female diaconate, the Pope has in fact created 2 commissions in 2016 and another one in 2020 with the mission to study the role of women deacons, especially with regards to the early days of the Church. But they have so far not provided any additional guidance. But at the same time, in a letter sent to the prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith in 2021, the Holy Father reiterated his opposition to the idea of opening priesthoods and diaconates to women. And he precised that further thought should be given to non-ordained ministries. And it is interesting because Pope Benedict XVI raised the same issue in 2019 in his message for the anniversary of the International Theological Commission, suggesting that it needed to be clarified theologically. And again, in both cases, the female diaconate does not imply in any case opening up the ministry of deacons to women. This would be rather a lay ministry that would allow women to carry out tasks that would be analogous to those performed by deacons, usually. And it is in this light that most experts interpret the Synod document, which explicitly mentioned the need to reflect on the inclusion of women in the diaconate and the ways in which this could be achieved. But we should keep in mind that this term is to be understood as a non-ordained lay ministry and not a proper diaconate ministry.
That would have a path. That's right. That would have a path to the priesthood. So you're talking about 2 different things, a split in the definition of diaconate and also 2 popes both reaffirming that this really isn't the direction that they wanted for women. They did want to include women in leadership. So with all of that in mind, Solene, what does the vote now given to women in this synod mean? What can we expect its impact to be?
Of the 85 women attending the synod, 54 have the right to vote. This means that they will be able to vote with all 374 voting members at the Synod Assembly on all the different issues that will be discussed. It will therefore be the first time that women and not consecrated lay people will be able to vote at the synod. And before that, this right was reserved for clerics. And so it is considered a very important change, together with the fact that the presence of 2 women among the 9 president delegates will be also allowed. That is, 2 president delegates will preside over the Synod Assembly in the name and by authority of the Pope when he's not present. The aim of the Synod leaders in including them, like more women and more young women, in the deliberative process is, according to them, to make the Church more representative. But they precise that the people selected, especially according to the Synod rapporteur, had to have they had to have participated in the Synod process at national and continental level, in order to ensure continuity and to stand out for their culture and knowledge about the Church and their virtue of prudence, meaning that they should put the Church before their personal interests.
Well, that's remarkable. We'll be watching that very carefully. Thank you so much, Solene.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
EWTN and all of our news entities, including our broadcasts, EWTN News Nightly, News In Depth, Pro-Life Weekly, as well as our print and digital entities of the National Catholic Register, the Catholic News Agency, Así Prensa, and more, will be covering the Synod on Synodality from multiple angles. We will also have a daily live broadcast from Rome with up-to-the-minute news from this historic assembly. Be sure to follow us on air and online for complete coverage.